Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of Nate Knows Ball. I'm your host, Nate Massey. Welcome. I cannot think of a better time to start a sports show, first episode, than what we're doing now, than the time that we're doing it now. This is insanity. There's a reason why I called it an act of terror in Dallas, because, my God, this might be the most consequential trade in NBA history. Might very well be. Let's get right into it. Let's not waste any time. So, if you've been living under a rock for the past 24 hours, basketball world, basketball citizens, you are probably just finding out that the Dallas Mavericks traded Luka freaking Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Street Clothes Davis and a first-round draft pick. Now, this is one of those trades where you know where you are when it happens, right? Like, I knew where I was when Kevin Garnett was traded to the Celtics. I knew where I was yesterday when I found out that Luka Doncic was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, and I was in shock. And the rest of the day, my wife was looking at me. What are you doing? Why do you keep looking at your phone? You've got kids. And I just was staring into my phone. What's happening? And tons of thoughts here. So let's get into some of the reasonings behind it. What happened? So first of all, the GM of the Mavericks says it was a conditioning issue. Second of all, the haul they got in return. Third of all, the team that they traded him to. There is a lot going on here, and if I'm being honest, everything about this trade stinks to high heaven. Why? All right, let's start off with the reasoning. Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Mavericks, who, by the way, here's another aspect of this. He's bright. He's no dummy. He's the one who brought in Kyrie Irving. He's the one who traded for Daniel Gafford. He's the one who signed Klay Thompson, who's a nice piece for them. He's the one who drafted Derek Lively, who moved up in the draft to draft Derek Lively. And Derek Lively became a serious contributor down low in the low post for them on the way to a Western Conference championship. He's a legit big. This Nico Harrison is no dum-dum, okay? So what does he do? What are we hearing now? What are the reports we're hearing? He initiated phone calls with the Lakers offering them Luka Doncic. This was all in secret, by the way. This was all done. Nobody knew. He didn't auction him off. He didn't put news out there that he wants to be traded, right? We just found out that De'Aaron Fox got traded from the Kings to the Spurs. The Kings put that out there, okay? Whenever a player is disgruntled, they want to leave, the team makes it known. They leak it to the press so that they can drive up the price. None of this happened. None of this happened. For whom? One of the 3 to 5 best players in the NBA who's 25 years old. All under wraps, all quiet. I cannot for the life of me put together why they did it that way. So what do? They trade him off to the Lakers, and their reasoning is what?
It's a conditioning problem.
They were worried that he's a little tubby. He puts on way too easily. His conditioning is going to be a problem moving forward. He's 25 now. He hasn't played since Christmas, and they're worried. That's their reasoning. That's what they want to tell you. Is that why you traded a 25-year-old with conditioning problems for a 31-year-old with conditioning problems? Makes absolutely no sense. For me, a dum-dum who's talking about it, and especially for a bright general manager who's put together a team that only a few months ago was in the NBA Finals. Luka led them to the NBA Finals. Wild. Not only are they trading a 25-year-old with conditioning problems for a 31-year-old with conditioning problems, but also the 25-year-old is better than the 31-year-old. In fact, the 25-year-old, Luka, is better than AD has ever been in his entire career. Peak AD, whether it's his last year in New Orleans or when he won the title with Los Angeles, Luka is better than him all the way around. Okay? You don't trade Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis in any year. So the fact that they're saying it's a conditioning issue doesn't really work with me. Also, the Pelicans were worried about Zion's conditioning. They still gave him max money. Philly was worried about Embiid's conditioning issues. They still give him max money. Now, is New Orleans regretting that decision? Probably. But when he's healthy, he's still a stud. And when Embiid's healthy, he won an MVP. I know everyone is saying it should have gone to Joker, but you do it. You do it for a generational talent. You give the money to the generational talent, and you work with him, keep his conditioning up, keep the weight down, and he can give you more than pretty much any player in the NBA. So the conditioning excuse doesn't work because they just traded him for a guy who has conditioning issues. 2, it's kept in secret. Instead of driving up the price, they do it hush hush, nobody knows. Okay? 3, the haul. What did they get in return? They give up Luka and Max Kleber, who's a nice player. He's not a star, but he's a nice piece. For Anthony Davis and a first. And how many firsts? 1 first? 1 first-round draft pick? Guys, if you want, go look up the Paul George trade to the Clippers. Paul George, who's nowhere close to the player Luka is, netted the OKC Thunder, the current leader in the MVP race, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who by the way is 25 years old, and a bevy of draft picks. I mean a bevy. I think it was something like 6 first-round draft picks. Now, it's hard to compare these two. This is important. It's hard to compare these two trades because Kawhi had a gun to their head, figuratively. Not literally. Here at Nate Knows Ball, we don't use the word literally improperly. He figuratively had a gun to their head. He said, I want Paul George. So they had to make it happen, and Sam Presti, the brilliant GM of the Thunder, knew that he had leverage. So he asks for the world, and he got it. And now his 25-year-old MVP leading point guard, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is leading him to the top of the NBA. He got that, plus 6 first-round draft picks for Paul George, who isn't close to the player that Luka Doncic is? And what does Luka get you? A 31-year-old with conditioning problems and 1 first-round draft pick? Doesn't make sense. The haul just doesn't make sense. And it's because they did it in secret. Why? Why would you trade a generational talent in secret? If you're going to trade a guy like this, which you should never do, and we'll get to that a little later, drive up the price. Drive up the price. Let everyone know he's on the market. Just doesn't make any sense. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing, and maybe the most consequential reason why this trade stinks to high heaven. Who did the Dallas Mavericks trade their generational guard to? They're like the Packers, right? The Packers had Brett Favre, then they had Aaron Rodgers, right? The Mavericks have Dirk Nowitzki, and then now they have Luka. It's like the continuation of the European pipeline. One generational forward to another generational forward guard. Could have been sweet. Why would you do that? Why would you trade him to the Los Angeles Lakers? Folks, let's look at the past 50 years of the Lakers. They have almost always had an elite MVP level or supremely marketable talent. Okay? Whether it's Wilt, then Kareem, then Magic, then Shaq, then Kobe, may he rest in peace. Then LeBron. Remember, Kobe retires in 2016. 2 years later, we see LeBron's private jet landing in Los Angeles. And now Luka. Why? Why is that the case? I think I've figured it out. I've discovered it. It's a law. There's a law that the NBA is following, a law that they've had in place for decades now. It's called the Laker Law. And the Laker Law clearly states that the Los Angeles Lakers, being the premier franchise in the NBA, always have to have one of the most marketable or perhaps one of the best players in the NBA. Period. Okay? Kareem, he wins 5 MVPs with the Lakers? Then Magic. The way they brought in Magic from Michigan State. He's arguably the greatest point guard of all time. They had him together. Then in the 90s, right, they didn't really have, Magic retires in 91, 92, he leaves. Magic's not really Magic when he was there. right? The Lakers weren't really much in the 90s for most of the 90s, but that's fine. That's fine. The NBA saw no problem with that. Why? Because the best player in the world was carrying the league on his back from the Midwest. Okay? Michael Jordan was carrying the league in the Windy City, and it's fine. So the NBA is exempt from the Laker law when you've got a talent like Michael Jordan in a big market like Chicago carrying the league, both domestically and abroad. Towards the end of that second three-peat, what happens? I'll admit it, Orlando fumbles the bag. They screwed up. You cannot offer Shaquille O'Neal 4 years, $80 million. $80 million. When down the street in Miami, the Heat are giving Alonzo Mourning $100 million. You can't do that. It's just not, it's not going to work. So they fumbled it. He goes to LA. He goes to Tinseltown, La La Land, and the rest is history. Kobe Bryant's drafted. Right? Kobe Bryant is drafted right before that. And he tells pretty much, what is it? Is it a rumor? Or I'm only going to play for the Lakers. Charlotte drafts him. Right? The logo facilitates the trade. He plays for the Lakers. Right? Shaq leaves. The Lakers go down a bit. So what do? What happens? 2000, is it 8, 7? Pau Gasol, who was at the time one of the 3 best bigs in the league, gets traded to the Lakers. Now the Lakers give up his brother, who turned out to be a fantastic player. But that haul isn't worth Pau Gasol. I mean, he was incredible. The Lakers needed a boost. They needed a jump. And the league needed to keep Kobe, perhaps the most marketable player at the time and the best guard at the time, in LA. He was threatening to leave. Give him an all-star big. He stays. They go to the finals 3 more times and they win 2 of them. Here are the waning years of Kobe now. Now you have the waning years of Kobe Bryant. 14, 15, he retires in 16. Laker law. We need a supreme talent to go to LA. LeBron James lands in La La Land miraculously 2 years later. Now what happens? They bring in AD. They win their title. It's exciting. They've been to the Western Conference Finals. The Nuggets trump them. They don't know what to do. All of a sudden, in secret, out of nowhere, the best guard in the NBA, a generational talent, is traded to them in secret. There's no bidding war. You don't mean to tell me that Sam Presti wouldn't have offered, say, Jalen Williams, Isaiah Hartenstein, and about 4 first-round draft picks for Luka Doncic? He would have done it in a heartbeat. You don't mean to tell me that despite his demands to move to San Antonio, he's a Texas boy, Sacramento couldn't have given up, I don't know, De'Aaron Fox, Murray, and about 4 first-round draft picks for Luka Doncic? You can't tell me there's another team out there with an incredible... Hell, the Rockets would have probably been willing to give up Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, and about 3 to 4 first-round draft picks for the rights to Luka. Are you telling me that there's no other team in the NBA that could have offered better than a condition problem 31-year-old big, who's playing great, by the way, but he's 31, he's on the wrong side of his 30s. He has had problems with conditioning and a singular first-round draft pick. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. This is why I don't think Nico Harrison did this by himself. There are other factors at play. There are other people involved in this. It just doesn't make sense. It's the Laker law, folks. The Lakers always have to have a superstar. And they're not good at drafting. They're not particularly good at developing talent. Right? I mean, there was that one time they drafted D'Angelo Russell and Ingram and Kuzma's a nice core, and they got rid of all of them. It's the Laker law, folks. The league knows it. I think Nico Harrison knows it. Now, here's another thing that doesn't make sense to me. I'm just trying to make sense of all this because this is without a doubt the craziest, biggest, most monumental shift in talent we've seen in the 21st century. 100%. What are they saying? What are they saying about this whole trade? So what are some people saying? It's a money issue. They were worried about his conditioning and they didn't want to give him the $345 million contract extension that he sought. Really? Really, folks? You don't think a guy like Luka Doncic is worth the money? Let me tell you something. Nobody watches Dallas Mavericks basketball for no reason except Luka Doncic. We're not watching for Kyrie. He's past his prime. We're not watching for Klay. He's past his prime. We like Derek Lively. Daniel Gafford's a nice player with beautiful eyes. We're watching for Luka. That's who we want to see. And it's not just the domestic base that's watching him. He's got Europe locked up. Him and Joker and Giannis have Europe locked up. Eastern Europe loves him. How many Dallas Mavericks jerseys do you think have been sold in Europe, particularly Eastern Europe, since he was drafted? I'm not saying that Eastern Europe is the economic powerhouse that New York and LA and the United States and all this are. What I am saying is Europe as a whole sees a boost in Dallas Mavericks jersey sales because of him. He's got the domestic market. He's got the foreign market. He's a fiery, kind of, trash-talking guard. When's the last time we saw a generational, fiery, trash-talking guard who can lead his team to the finals? Oh, that's right, a guy named... he's on the same shoe team. It's called Michael Jordan. And to compare Luka to Michael Jordan might seem like I'm blaspheming, but folks, he is that good. He will never be Jordan, but you can talk about it. You can bring up his name. They got the same personality. They're fighters. They talk, right? They talk trash, and they can kill you. The Dallas Mavericks essentially just traded a killer on the basketball court. They committed basketball terrorism by trading a killer for who? Anthony Davis. Great player. Really, really good. And by the way, if we're going to, sorry to rain on your parade, Lakers fans, but your defense just went from, okay to horrible. Your best defender, your best rebounder, your best rim protector is gone. And you got Luka. Luka can board. He's not a defender. Your best perimeter defender now is Rui Hachimura? It's just, look, I don't think they're better than Memphis. I don't think they're better than Denver. I don't think they're better than Houston. I definitely don't think they're better than OKC. So the West doesn't run through LA even with Luka right now. This is a long-term play. Right now, as long as LeBron's there, it's not going to happen. But LeBron's loving it. For those of you who follow LeBron, he desperately campaigned to get Luka on his shoe company, on his shoe deal. Didn't work. He went to MJ. He went to Jumpman. But now he's pretty happy. LeBron's happy. He can ride off into the sunset. He accomplished the last thing he wanted to do in the NBA. He said it for years now. I've done everything. I've won MVPs. I've won titles. I've won gold medals. I've done it all. The last thing I want to do is play with my boy, to play with Bronny. And he's accomplished that. He can check that off his basketball bucket list, folks. He's ready to ride off into the sunset. And now his son can play for his team with the best guard in the NBA. He's a happy man. He can stay in LA. There are reports coming out that saying he wants to continue playing with the Lakers. And why wouldn't he? He can still play. He gets to play with Luka freaking Doncic, his son, and stay home. Got some nice pieces. Again, they're not defensive. They need to get a real big, but that's a sweet, sweet deal for a 40-year-old who's done everything in the NBA. For Dallas, in the short term, you have a three-headed monster down low. You've got Derek Lively, you've got Daniel Gafford, and you've got Anthony Davis. So it's not the Twin Towers, it's the Triplet Towers. They got a nice post presence, and you've got Kyrie and now Klay Thompson as your 1 and 2. Okay, that can do some stuff, but special players lead your team to finals. And Luka's a special player. And it's not a money thing. Because even if you pay him the max, people will watch because of him. People will go to games because of him. People will get cable subscriptions because of him. People will buy jerseys because of him. He sells merch better than anybody. Right now, him and Wemby, two Europeans, are the best at selling merch in the state of Texas for those basketball teams. Sorry, folks. The Euros are dominating, and he's one of them. Okay? So in the state of Texas, the three teams in the state of Texas, who sells the most merch? Wemby, Luka, period. End of story. You want to throw in a third? Şengün in Houston. Forget it. Forget it. He's the reason why Dallas mattered. And by the way, for us basketball fans, we know this. Dallas has had a hard time attracting free agents. They just have. People don't want to play there. I don't know why. I can't explain it. They just don't want to go there. Luka was the reason to go to Dallas. Luka was the reason to play in the American Airlines Arena. And they fumbled it. And they gave him to the Lakers. Everybody wanted to play in LA anyway. Now you just gave him more reason for elite free agents or for disgruntled stars to want to demand trades to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Laker law, folks, it's real. And it's the reason why I believe terrorism was carried, an act of terror was carried out in the American Airlines Arena 24 hours ago. Well, that's about it. Thank you for joining us. You can follow us at Nate Knows Ball on Instagram, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be on TikTok as well for some shorts. Link and comment below. I'd love to see what you guys think of everything from the reasoning to the Laker law to why it was done in secret, the conditioning issues, all of that. How are you going to call your superstar fat and cost him $60 million? It's not going to make people want to come to your destination more. So thanks for joining us, and we'll be back with another episode.